So in today's video, we're going to talk about how to find products to sell on your new e-commerce store. So what can you sell? Well, first thing we're going to talk about is what aren't we going to sell? And mainly we're going to say we're not going to be everything to everyone. There's already an Amazon, there's already a Sears.com, there's already a Walmart. So we don't want to try and be everything to everybody. Instead, we're going to narrow our search down to various themes. And in the internet marketing parlance, they call it finding our niche. And so I'm just going to show you some examples to help guide you along the way of what some of these niche examples are. And so the first one here is, let's say you want to work in home goods. And if we look at home goods here, it's way too broad a subject. So we need to narrow it down a little bit more. And maybe we want to narrow it down to the kitchen. But to be honest, there's already a lot of kitchen supply companies out there like Williams-Sonoma, and every time you go to the mall, you'll see one. So that's maybe not the right level. But if we narrow it down one more level, let's say we want to become the go-to place for chef's knives. And when you do that, you become this company here, right, which is Chef's Knives To Go. And you can see they found their niche, and they sell tons and tons of them. And they sell stuff that you probably aren't going to find at a lot of stores. And this is what we want to look at. We want to find our theme or find our niche and bring it down quite a bit smaller than what you might be thinking. So let's take a look at niche number 2. So let's say you're a big pet fan. You like animals, you like dogs, you like cats. But even dogs is, frankly, it's too big a market. It's a multi-billion-dollar market, and it's hard to compete with pet stores and with Amazon. So the person on the next page, though, they found a niche within that industry. And you can see here it's called indestructibledog.com. And essentially what they're doing is they're selling things that are frankly hard to destroy. And if you have a dog, you know that they go through some toys really quickly. And then even if you look at this person here, which I showed in previous videos, they are, she's hitting like the 18 to 30-year-old market. Girls who want to get in shape, who want a bikini body. And this is what you have to do. You have to find out what your niche is. So the question is how do you decide? How do you decide? Well, obviously it takes research, but we're going to take a look at, supply, demand, and margin. And demand is key because without demand, you don't have a business, right? If no one wants to buy your product, it doesn't matter how great it is or how good a price it is, no one's going to buy it. And supply plays a role as well because it determines who you buy it from, but it also determines your competitors who are supplying to the market. And finally, we need to look at margin because you have to actually make enough money on it to make it worthwhile to be done. So let's take a look at demand first. And, like I said, it takes research, but where do we research? Well, first of all, we can find local and retail chain stores. You can see what they're selling there. And the great thing about that is most local and even retail stores, they carry a really small selection. Essentially, they have to drive a certain number of product. I had talked to one company at one point about a product I had made, and I needed to guarantee that they would sell $100,000 a year before they would keep it on the shelves. And you can also take a look at other e-commerce sites and figure out what they're doing or whether you can do it better yourself. And obviously we have Amazon and we have eBay. So let's go ahead onto the computer and let's do a little research to see where we might be able to find some ideas. So as you can see, we are on the Amazon website right now, and actually I'm looking at the Amazon bestsellers, and what this will allow you to do is to kind of come through and figure out what things are selling, right? Which ones are bestsellers, and how you can go ahead and niche down and find something for you. So it might be in the baby department, or maybe it's in the home and kitchen department. And you can see what things are selling. And a lot of times it's just kind of coming through here and trying to figure out exactly what you want to sell. You can do the same thing with eBay and see what's going on in eBay as well. But another one you can look at is Facebook, right? So maybe you have an interest in German Shepherds. And as you can see, there are a lot of communities where people want to look up German Shepherd stuff. The other thing you have is, maybe it's vegan, right? You can see there's a lot of vegan groups here. So finding a niche or an area you want to play in, you can use social media just as well. Finally, if you have interests or skills that you might be able to supply to, this might be worthwhile as well. And maybe you do woodworking, you want to provide woodworking tools, or you do martial arts and you have there's a need out there that's hard to find, or you want to build kits for a game that you play. And there's a lot of ways that you can go ahead and look at doing this. So you won't know till you do the research, though. And my advice to you is not to just choose one and go for it, but have a list of possible niches that you could go into and research and find out what the best one. So here's the other question then. Should you sell it? And what I'm saying is, do I have enough margin? And when we talk about margin, you have a $100 retail product. It costs you $50 wholesale, which means you have a $50 gross profit, which is about a 50% margin. Now, same thing, you have a $50 retail product. It costs you $40, which means you're making $10. You only have a 20% margin. And frankly, on smaller items, it's not enough. So for drop shipping, I recommend at least a 30% margin. And for inventory, at least a 50% margin. If you can't get those margins, you're probably not going to want to be in it. Also, if you have high shipping costs, you're going to need a higher margin, right? Because you have to offset. You can't charge, a lot of times in this day and age, you can't charge people the full cost of shipping. So you need to have enough margin to cover some of the shipping costs. And the same thing, if your price is low, your margins need to be higher. The question is can I rank? All right, and so we're talking about search engine optimization. Right? And you want to have your site ranked on the first page when people do searches for a specific keyword. And for example, this search here for Richmond knife, you can see that Chef Knives to Go, which I'd showed you before, they're showing up in all kinds of places on the homepage. So they ranked really well. So there are hundreds of factors that go into ranking for search terms. But there are two tools that I use for search. Longtail Pro is one, and Market Samurai is another. And I'll have some links on the page if you're interested in getting them. Market Samurai has been the leader for a long time, and it's a very complete SEO tool. It's a little bit more difficult. I picked up Longtail Pro about 6 months ago, and I've been using it a little bit more often, mainly because it's just a little bit easier, and it's easier to do quicker keyword searches and see which ones work for you. And they're both relatively inexpensive, and they both have trials, so you can try them out. So if you click the links below, when you're ready to do your keyword research, you can go ahead and take a look there. So let's talk about brand recognition. And you may think you want high brand recognition, but in many cases, not the case. And I'll give you an example here. iPhones have very high brand recognition, but it's also next to impossible to sell that unless you are a huge retailer. But take something like dog houses. There are a lot of good brands out there, but people are more concerned with the feature than necessarily who is making it. And then in the middle there, you have ceiling fans. And Hunter is probably one of the better known brands of ceiling fans, but there are dozens of makers. And in reality, people just care about the looks less than they do about the brand. So what is a perfect product? Well, there's no perfect product, but what I've seen is it usually has the following characteristics. So a selling price of $50 to $200. And $50 because if you only have a 30% gross margin, you're only making $15. Anything less than that makes it hard with the time you need to put in. Now, anything over $200, people need a lot more information. They may need to talk to somebody, but if you keep it in between there, it tends to work really well. At least a 30% gross margin, even more if you're taking inventory. Now, I've had some low-cost products that I've had like 500% margins on them. It cost me 50 cents. I sell it for $5 or $10, and you can do that as well. And low brand recognition. Obviously, it's easier to provide value and provide what people are looking for with low brand recognition. And finally, one thing I always like is a manufacturer that enforces a minimum advertised price. And so a MAP is telling their customers you can't have it on your site for less than $19.99. Right? The MSRP, the manufacturer suggested retail, might be $24.99, but you can't have it less than $19.99. And the key to this is you don't want to get into a race to the bottom, right? And the manufacturer wants to keep it because they don't want to cheapen their brand. So I always like finding manufacturers that enforce a minimum advertised price. So where do you buy? Well, if you're selling particular brands, the easiest thing is to reach out to them and call. In fact, I would reach out to call instead of actually emailing. Get on the phone. Ask them, can you be a wholesaler? Do they have a distributor that they work with? And I actually like sometimes when they tell me, we don't do it directly, but here's a distributor, because when you call the distributor, normally they'll have 5, 10, 15 other brands that they're working with, which just makes your life that much easier. What I would avoid are these, so-called drop shipping directories. Normally it's low quality information, or the pricing that they're providing is less than what you can buy it for on Amazon. Or is usually more than what you can buy it for on Amazon. But you can also order directly from manufacturers. And a typical example of this is Alibaba. Right, you can order stuff directly from a Chinese factory or manufacturer over there. But if you found your niche and you found the keywords you want to search for, the best advice, go to a trade show. Every single manufacturer will be there, and you can go ahead and talk to them and get approval right away. And in fact, a lot of times they might even give you some samples that you can use as well. And getting in front of someone is key. So go ahead, start your research, start looking at a variety of different things, and we'll go and see you in the next video. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you like this video, then go ahead and like or comment below. And whether you're watching this on YouTube or my website, go ahead and subscribe by clicking the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any other useful videos. If you want to see the last video in this series, go ahead and click the video in the corner to watch. I also recommend going to my website and subscribing to my site, where you'll get things like cheat sheets and workbooks you can't get on YouTube.